This is our very first Teams webinar, so we hope that the technology will hold and that we have an exciting program for you. As I said, my name is Catherine Good, and on behalf of our entire team, welcome to our end of the year civil society briefing. The objective for today is to look back on a transformational pandemic year with the aim of shaping an enhanced, productive path forward for the United Nations Department of Global Communications, the Global NGO Executive Committee, and the civil society community. Today, we've organized a session into 3 parts. The first will bring together UN colleagues, DGC's leadership, and that of the Global NGO Executive Committee. As always, we will include the voices of our diverse community and try our hand at some new technology. Next, I'll pass the floor to Minnie Murthy, a director at the Global NGO Executive Committee, to lead a panel conversation. Throughout these segments, we ask you to type your questions into the chat box and hold them until the end of the presentations. When the panel finishes, Minnie will call on those who raised their hands in the meeting, and then we will be able to turn on your camera and microphone so that we can have a real conversation. Finally, Sandra Timmerman of the Global NGO Executive Committee will lead our colleagues from DGC and civil society to look forward to use our hashtag UN with civil society. I want to take this time to thank the numerous organizations that have partnered with us throughout 2021, with whom we have made this year a truly significant one for building cooperation. We have tried to use virtual platforms throughout the pandemic and also to come back to a place where in-person meetings is also possible. We have called on civil society through partnerships and briefings, and civil society, you have never failed to show up when called upon. I also want to thank our team for their hard work and relentless enthusiasm for providing an outlet for continuous collaboration between the UN and civil society. This would not be possible without the support of our managers and directors, whose strong guidance led us to a path of continued unity that has amplified the voices of the NGO community, who have worked so hard to establish collaborations and organize events that would uplift the voices of civil society and of youth. Today is an opportunity for UN staff and the NGO community to reflect on the ways in which the pandemic has transformed our work and to recast the ways in which the UN interacts and collaborates with civil society. As we think about the hardships and successes of 2021, we should also think about what is to come and how we can learn in order to create a better future. To that end, our team has created a short presentation that we would like to share with you now.
Welcome the representatives of civil society organizations from all over the world. Thank you for tuning in.
This year was the new engagement opportunities.
It's been really exciting to see people from all over the world engaging.
We are not limited by the physical space of a room at the UN. We are open to the whole world.
Over 400 civil society organizations submitted their action stories on the ground, which was very new way of engagement for the United Nations.
I actually feel more connected with the work of the NGO now that we are working virtually.
It's really cool being able to zoom in from my childhood bedroom to people coming in live from all over the world.
For close to 2 years, the halls and corridors of the United Nations were deprived of the voices of the civil society representatives. On behalf of the General Assembly, I'm glad to welcome you back with open arms.
2022 is a great opportunity to not abandon the lessons we have learned. We can do better to include more voices. Civil society must be part of the conversation. Let's move forward. And now that we have the technology and the capacity to do so, let's take advantage.
Thank you. I enjoyed that much more, being able to hear my colleagues' voices in the second run and see all the amazing stories and work that all of civil society shared with us throughout the year. Now I want to ask our friend Patrick Sharada to turn on his camera and to join us and make some comments on the work of the Global NGO Executive Committee, of which he is president this year. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I thank you all for joining us today. The GNEC Board of Directors thanks the Department of Global Communications for their time and for including us in this review today. This comes as an important time for our community. A review and a look forward is essential during these strange times, and we look forward to your helpful voice at the end of this discussion. I'm proud and humbled to be the president who shall usher in the 60th anniversary of this storied organization. And what interesting times to live through together with our civil society community. In some ways, the pandemic has certainly closed off civil society from meaningful interaction, but in many other ways, COVID has forced a democratization on the UN, with online access in ways never offered previously. We're grateful for that silver lining in COVID's dark cloud. It reminds us all to accept in this once-in-a-lifetime moment that which we cannot change while making the most of that which we can change. We remain equally grateful to individuals within our community, like Margot Lazaro, the folks at C4UN, Public Foundation, Congo, and our own two GNEC vice presidents, Dr. Murty and Ms. Clopton, and others, too numerous to name here, for assiduously keeping civil society united through the sharing of important information throughout the pandemic. Those civil society presenters should be lauded for their service to our extended community. At GNEC, we've taken a path of producers, bringing new services to those NGOs associated with UNDGC. This new focus has involved many on the new board. In fact, I've never known this board to be more laser focused on assisting the constituent community of UN-vetted NGOs who are preparing and presenting their own programming, some in conjunction with the United Nations, and even their own member states, all of whom we hope to serve. We also recognize that many on our subscriber list will join us today, and they are not associated with UNDGC, and we heartily urge them to do so at this time. It's imperative that we all understand that civil society is one of the three important bases outlined in the United Nations Charter. The missions and staff garner their power and funding from the member states, but it is often civil society who are the change makers at UNHQ and worldwide. The voices of our presenting partners have been among the strongest during the pandemic, and GNEC hopes to produce support as a help in their efforts. To date, GNEC has been working on redesigning our website, which is now gnec.ngo. It no longer features our story, but better enables our community to tell their story. We will regularly be highlighting associated NGOs on our homepage and making other new services more accessible going forward. For example, our Zoom account will, with enough lead time and approval, be available to all UNDGC associated NGOs. In fact, recently, the African Youth Movement and the Nigerian government utilized our free service to conduct a workshop on the mitigation of mitigating disruption, I should say, of services during the pandemic. Without our service, this meeting would not have been able to take place on such a large platform. Through our relationship with Rutgers Prep, we have created an active format for offering workshops and full courses related to the SDGs. We have populated the site with free courses that can be taken or led by associated NGOs completely free of charge. Should the coursework be fee-driven, the associated NGO will keep 100% of that income. GNEC will no longer charge NGOs for any service it offers to them. As the massive online open course platform expands, we also hope to incorporate courses from the SDG Academy on that site. Watch this space. GNEC is currently moving forward to increase support for its in-kind services and potentially even create a base for regranting of funds to associated NGOs through an adjudicated system that we will develop in 2022. This support will begin with a podcast series produced on Vimeo and YouTube, where associated NGOs will be interviewed by our host moderators. The end result will be to share those podcasts with major television networks worldwide to increase the public relations and development tools for the NGOs. We are looking for a February 22 launch date for the new podcast series. As part of our internal strategic development plan, we are utilizing external surveys to assist with our massive rebranding campaign. Those surveys demonstrate the need for us to provide nuts and bolts, kind of humble support for those great presenters whom I mentioned earlier. That support has gone unfulfilled by this organization in recent years. So in fact, this thrust has energized us, and the surveys show that it is being well received. As we succeed further, we only hope for more opportunities to serve those in our community doing the daily excellent work that enabled them to receive UNDGC accreditation in the first place. When you receive our surveys, please respond. If our services can help your associated NGO work better and stronger, approach us. And if you are not associated, this is our final plea. We encourage and want to even help you associate so that the voice of civil society, already strong, can grow even more resounding and broad in coming years. Once again, I thank our long-term partners at DGC for their interest in our cooperative work and mission. We shall continue to look forward to new and better ways to interface as your sponsors and your supportive friends in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you to everyone on the Global NGO Executive Committee and all of the partners that you bring to work with you and therefore to work with all of us on our team. I'm going to ask our colleagues now to share a video and to remind everyone to be a little bit careful as you make your way through the buttons and make sure that you don't accidentally take control and share your own screens. And Sophie is going to share a video now with a message from Ms. Mara Al.
Hello, everyone. Over the last 14 years, Dubai Cares has sought meaningful partnerships with global agencies operating in the humanitarian and development space in order to empower millions of children and youth around the world through access to quality education. In light of the challenges we face today, Dubai Care believes that there are 3 key elements that will play a defining role in how we forge stronger partnerships in the future. We believe that first and foremost, we must focus on nurturing deeper commitment to delivering real impact that leads to real outcomes with results that are tangible, effective, and even scalable so they can benefit as many people as possible. Second, we have always advocated for better alignment between NGOs and UN agencies, as this is critical to the success of the partnerships they build together. In the absence of proper coordination, we run the risk of ineffective strategies, overlapping efforts, and poor outcomes. Finally, it is absolutely essential that we work together with greater flexibility, agility, and a sense of urgency towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, especially given the evolving nature of the complex crisis we are dealing with in our current times. Partnerships between NGOs and UN agencies are crucial to building peaceful, prosperous, and even productive economies. Ensuring their success in driving sustainable change is a collective responsibility that we must fulfill together through a shared vision for a better world. Thank you.
Many thanks to Mada and to Dubai Cares, who has been a great partner for us at Expo 2020, where Maher is right now. And most of you know him. I'm not sure that most of you know our new Deputy Director, Mr. Rob Skinner, who it's my great pleasure to introduce to you now. 2021 brought us Rob back to DGC and OD, and we welcome you now to meet the civil society community. Thanks, Rob.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. And I'm also going to give a special thank you to Patrick. Thank you for stepping in and changing the order and being willing to take it on. Very much appreciated. I apologize for being a little bit late to the event, but it's great to be with everybody. And I think that as I talk about my background a little bit, I know many of you, but I also I'm sure I'm just being introduced to and meeting a lot of you as well on this. But I'm very excited and enthusiastic about our engagement with the civil society community, with the NGO community, and with the Global NGO Executive Committee, which I'm very pleased that Patrick has taken the helm of. I briefly going to talk about why I was late, because I think it's interesting and it fits a little bit into the conversation that we're having here today in terms of engaging civil society and engaging organizations around the world. But I'm late because I was running from a speaking event that I had this morning that conflicted a little bit with this event with the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, which may not initially sound like a group to engage with, but it demonstrates that the civil society organizations and also business organizations that are interested in the SDGs is expanding. And I think it is with great, thanks to all of you for pushing the word out on the SDGs and making sure that the 2030 agenda reaches broader audiences. So, having an invitation come to Department of Global Communications from the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, I think demonstrates that we are making progress, at least on getting the word on the SDGs out into various and different communities. And the reason I thought it was important to actually show up and participate in their discussion is because it's an industry that, surprise to me, is very focused on sustainability. And their entire 3-day conference of this global society is focused on sustainability. And thinking about how they can be more sustainable within their industry and within their individual companies, and then thinking about the industry and then breaking it down to the chemists that actually formulate the products that are sold in the cosmetics and self-care industry, I think is an interesting audience as we think about how important science has to be and accurate, factual information is to the audiences we're trying to reach as we think about our priorities going forward into 2022, which clearly will continuing focus on COVID-19, the pandemic, and also recovery from the pandemic. So I will talk a little bit about the priorities for DGC going forward into 2022 and how I think we can work collaboratively with our civil society partners, with all of you out in the community. But I will first briefly introduce myself and talk about my engagement with civil society over the years. And the reason I would know many of you, and including Patrick, goes back to my days with the United Nations Foundation, which has always been a champion of civil society and civil society engagement within the UN community. And particularly in my role with the New York office, I engaged constantly and consistently with the civil society entities affiliated with the United Nations, of course, but also with broad global civil society, particularly in the run-up to all the 2015 events around getting the SDGs adopted, but then also pushing for success on the Paris Agreement on climate. And I talked quite a bit about that with the group, the group of cosmetic chemists I was speaking with earlier. And I always say this whenever I give a speech about the SDGs or have a discussion about the SDGs, is there would be no SDGs, and there would also be no Paris Climate Agreement if not for civil society and the inclusive effort that was brought together to push governments to actually adopt the SDGs. You know, going back to the inclusive process in advance of September 2015 that SG Bond had put together to try and get voices from around the world to be part of the SDG development. Then also, you know, the Action 2015 movement, which included, I'm sure, many of your organizations, but over, you know, about approximately 3,000 organizations globally that came together to make the push for the SDGs. And I'm hoping some of you are recalling Action 2015, because I certainly remember it fondly as being a significant part of the engagement that we put forward on that at the time when I was with UN Foundation. Which is all to say, I really do consider myself a champion for civil society in terms of its engagement with the UN and around the UN issues. So I'm really looking forward to working with all of you, engaging with all of you, having meetings and conversations with all of you to figure out how we can best support each other as we go into 2022 and hopefully come together in person more, hybrid for sure. And in some cases, we're going to have to continue to do this, what we're doing today, remote. But hopefully we're going to make progress. But a lot of it will depend on how we can all work together to continue to promote science and push for vaccine uptake, vaccine equity, and all those things we need to do to take on this ongoing COVID-19 crisis. So priorities for DGC align, of course, very closely with the Secretary General's priorities and the UN system's priorities. And I think that for us, COVID-19 obviously continues to be a significant priority. And you know, from the DGC side of things, our sort of flagship effort around that is the Verified initiative. You know, when folks haven't seen it, go to shareverified.com and have a look, and please become a part of that effort. We really need more champions. We need organizations. We need more, you know, people to just say, I'm going to take this accurate, factual, science-based information, and I'm going to spread it out across my communities. And I know all of you have significant communities that you can reach out to on that. So if you haven't become involved in that, please do so. And we're also going to be looking through Verified for verified champions, individuals and influencers and organizations that are willing to really step up, sign up, and push forward on taking that messaging out as we continue to try and tackle the pandemic. A second priority is, of course, climate and taking on the climate crisis. And I have to say that I feel like you know, since Paris and even before Paris, going all the way back to Copenhagen, I feel like the UN and civil society has been incredibly aligned on climate messaging. And that was really obvious in Glasgow. And I think if folks looked at, read, heard the Secretary General's remarks, they aligned with civil society and they were supported by civil society. And with those remarks, I think that the Secretary General Guterres, supported the ambitious efforts that you all want to see on climate, and we have to continue to push the governments to take more ambitious action themselves and actually take action around the climate agenda. So thank you on the UN's behalf for the support and the messaging and the effort that was put forth by civil society around Glasgow. And I think there's a great deal we can do going forward into 2022 on that, as we have to take what were probably in many cases disappointing commitments from governments and actually take action ourselves and push for greater action going forward. And then, of course, the third major priority, which should be a surprise to no one, is we need to get further ambition and action around the decade of action for the SDGs. I think that you'll hear both the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General talking regularly about that. We know that COVID-19 has taken us even further off track on achieving the SDGs by 2030. And I think that civil society, again, has a significant role to play in advocating for success on the SDGs and action on the SDGs, but also by taking action ourselves and yourselves within the organizations that you all are active within and leading, in fact. So those are the three major priorities, along with, of course, we always have some focus on the peace and security issues, migrants, refugees, and those kinds of issues that are crisis humanitarian issues popping up in different places at different times, which attract our attention and which we'll always seek support from civil society to drive messaging out on those crises, but also help you engage on those issues as well. I was asked to talk a little bit about, my vision for civil society and engagement with civil society through DGC. I'd have to say that I don't really think I have a vision, which would make it sound like there would be a drastic shift or change in our engagement with civil society. I think what we want to do is enhance and improve and identify ways in which we can work better together. So I don't think that's a drastic shift. I know that there's been great engagement already from our civil society unit with all of you. And Patrick is bringing some great thinking to the table to enhance that as well. And I think that we just have to be thinking of ways and constantly engaging with each other to drive messaging and action on the issues that we all care about collectively. And I see Andy has come on the screen, and often when Andy comes on the screen, that means that I've gone over my time, or I'm pushing up against my time, and which I actually ask that people do to make me aware that I'm on time. So what is the vision? It is just making sure that we understand each other, that we have opportunities to engage with each other. That we support your ability to engage with the UN and the member states at the UN and participate in events and activities as they go forward. And for us, we would ask that, because I think that we are so aligned in what we're trying to accomplish going forward into 2022 on the issues I just laid out, how you can help support the UN in reaching communities where you are with those messages. So with that, I just thank you. I thank you for your engagement with the UN. I thank you for doing what you do. I think it's incredibly valuable and important, and I'm excited to work with you going forward, as I think and know everyone in this CSU is. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Rob, and we do appreciate all your time. I know your schedule is super busy, but it means a lot to the civil society community to both understand your background and know that you have been a part of civil society and walking along with civil society for the better part of the last decade and leading on the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you for your time and for joining us, and also for sharing the priorities around combating misinformation, advocating for climate action, and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, which will help shape the rest of our conversations throughout the day. I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Padmini Murthy, who she has a long title now, First Vice Chair of the Global NGO Executive Committee, Global Health Lead, Medical Women's Association, Professor and Global Health Director at New York Medical College of Health Sciences and Practice. And while Minnie introduces the panel, I'll ask you to remember that we'll be posting all of our questions in the chat box, and then Minnie will have the opportunity to pull questions from the chat box and direct them to the panelists so that we can have a conversation. In that way, we won't have the opportunity to take live questions from the floor, but please do use the chat box to share your thoughts. And welcome, Minnie.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everybody. Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you, Rob Skinner. Some of you have, of us have known you since your NGO days. It's really a pleasure. And greetings, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, whichever time zone you're in. It's so exciting you're with us on the 14th of December, just a few days before the end of the year. And thanks always to our respected colleagues at DGC for working with us. So we will now begin with the panel discussion, which is really exciting. It's strengthening civil society engagement and intergenerational partnerships. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Andy Guiteau, Chief NGO Relations, Advocacy and Special Events, Department of Global Communications. Andy, a personal thanks to you from me and also on behalf of all of us at the GNEC and all the NGOs for your time. We know how super busy you are, but thank you so much for your time. And you know, it's so exciting to hear from you. So the floor is now yours, Ms. Giteau, and take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minnie. And my time, there's nowhere I'd rather be, really. I'm so proud and happy to be here with you all. So, you know, a big welcome also to everybody watching and joining us online. And also really special thanks to our friends, our longstanding friends at the Global NGO Executive Committee for co-organizing this briefing and for everything that you do every day. And just incredible collaboration. We could not be more grateful. So as mentioned, I am the chief of the NGO Relations, Advocacy and Special Events section at the UN in the Department of Global Communications, or DGC, as we call it, and you all know. So I've spent my career working as a journalist, as a filmmaker, as a communication expert at the UN and other companies, and also working within the entertainment industry. And I had just the privilege of seeing firsthand the incredible work that that civil society organizations do on the ground around the world. When I was doing so much of the coverage, it was you know, really hand in hand with so many of the NGOs around the world, and I couldn't be more impressed and admire what is being done there. And for us, and so in this role, this idea of truly valuing the power of working in partnership and collaboration, and again, recognizing the power of what you do on the ground every day. So we, you know, at headquarters, think all the time about how we can collaborate, how do we foster engagement, how can we think about these relationships and make them meaningful, significant, and have impact. So it's, you know, when thinking about the end of the year, I can't believe how quickly kind of 2021 went. And you know, thinking back to it, I think it's obviously one of the most challenging years we've ever had. I also think it's was a year of kind of opportunity and thinking about that, and how do we pivot, and how do we turn, and how do we overcome challenges to bring the UN closer to you all. Again, we try to view it really as an opportunity. So kind of in this new landscape, how did we stay engaged over this past year? Again, it was that need to pivot and pivot quickly, that transition to kind of virtual and remote. We try to really think about lessons learned each and every time that we did a briefing or an event or talked about things or thought about collaboration. And we're really kind of pleased to say that we think that this kind of engagement went kind of largely uninterrupted, very different ways, but uninterrupted. Being online allowed us to, I think, tap into different geographies, different people, you know, being able to join in this way. So we were able to organize more than kind of 20 virtual events. So not only briefings like this one, but workshops, observances of UN International Days, and really also thinking about how to harness the power of new voices. So we offered orientation programs for some new DGC associated NGOs. It offered the opportunity to hear new perspectives, to kind of help us to reorient as well. And also, of course, as we know is important to kind of everyone, joining the harnessing the power of youth. So we did youth-led events such as table talks, which is an informal space for youth to kind of dialogue and to learn. We also developed a new audio civil society youth interview series called Storytelling with a Purpose, and we're really happy to say it's going to debut this week. So we're really pleased, and we hope everybody tunes in for that. And then really what we view as one of the most memorable events of this past year, which is the youth flagship event, Generation Restoration, which we co-organized with the UNEP, UN Environmental Program, for World Environment Day. We brought together dynamic speakers, including our Undersecretary General for Global Communications, the Executive Director of UNEP, the Young Champion of the Earth, and an adventurer and TV presenter, Bear Grylls, to share their experiences about how they take action to protect the planet. The event was live streamed, so 19,000 people have already seen it, which is amazing. And then we really thought about also what are some new strategies to help to amplify the messages. Rob spoke a little bit earlier about the priorities that we were really focusing on last year, over this year, and will continue, of course. But how do we amplify those messages? How do we spread the messages around the world about these key priorities. So climate, gender equality, COVID-19 recovery, human rights, and of course the SDGs. So we thought about really how do we involve influencers and advocates using their reach and their platforms to engage their own audiences and speak to their own.
Hi, everyone. If you can hear me, I think we're having some technical glitches. Kindly bear with us. We should be back. Thank you so much.
And Mentimeter and WhatsApp as different ways, again, to engage. Oh, sorry. Okay. We also wanted to encourage action through campaigns. So connect people to campaigns that we have with specific calls to actions, with suggestions and solutions, behavioral change, actions people can take. Rob spoke earlier about Verified, one of the bigger campaigns around combating misinformation and disinformation and vaccine equity. We have Act Now, which is about climate and sustainability and individual action. Through these tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people globally have engaged. And we thank everyone here who may have in their own way engaged in these different campaigns, carried the messages forward and inspired change. We also really thought about storytelling and how do we use storytelling to move the agenda forward and better connect. So we launched the Civil Society Action Stories, which we know, hopefully everybody here saw the call for those submissions, looking at the ways that NGOs have been fighting COVID on the ground. And then also climate action and gender equality and gender stories. So really that's an attempt to really think about how we can highlight the work of NGOs and CSOs on the ground. Also the idea of presence at events and conferences, of course, maybe made the most clear with COP26, which just happened in Glasgow. And then also, of course, the where DGC youth reps were really present and had a voice in terms of demanding climate justice and climate action. And then the youth conference there as well, obviously really important. And then joining at the UN. So we're so happy to say, while again, remote and virtual has its advantages, of course, there's nothing like being face-to-face and in-person engagement. So we were so thrilled when we were able to invite civil society back in to the town hall just recently with the president of the General Assembly. Finally, I'd just say also that we really have been thinking about impact, and this is something really important also moving forward. What kind of impact? How do we measure impact? What does impact mean? What does it look like? So looking at metrics and being able to define what that means. We've been partnering with students from Elon University in North Carolina in the US to do surveys and to actually kind of quantify what this may means, and also with our internal reporting mechanisms here at the UN to think about impact. Looking forward to 2022, I love what Rob said earlier, which is, we often think of a big vision. I think this is about looking at lessons learned over the year. We're going to have a lot of the same priorities, and it's about enhancing, it's about building on what was already done. Looking at lessons learned, we're expecting a mixture of online, in-person, and hybrid over this next year. We want to continue to find innovative ways to work. What's new, what's next, new platforms. Again, action, action, action. What does it mean to engage? How can we make change? What does that mean? What does that look like? And how do you measure it? And how do you amplify our messaging moving forward? How do we help to do that? In terms of the return to the UN, maybe saving the best news for last. As many of you know, the UN has officially welcomed civil society back at that event, the November 17th event with the PGA. You stay tuned. We're going to be sending out within the next, very short amount of time, new information on getting on how to designate NGO representatives to get ground passes back to UN headquarters. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for everything you do every day. Thank you to the civil society unit, UN. I'm just so proud to work alongside you all. And happy holidays to everyone, and enjoy the rest of the panel. And back to you, Mick. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy's amazing action-oriented call. Thank you so much. I think we took away a lot from your very simple but focused remarks. Really appreciate your time and your call for action. And before I call our next speaker, I would just like to also thank the DGC team who has worked always with us NGOs, being so supportive. A big shout out to Hava, Swati, Judith, Felipe, Catherine, Victoria, Sophia. I don't think I've forgotten anybody. Thank you so much, because this would not have been possible without you. And of course, my colleagues from the GNEC, all of them, Patrick, Nadine, Sandra, everybody, Connie, I can go on and on, but I just wanted to give a personal shout out. Again, thank you so much, Andy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this would not be successful without you. We have almost 200 people tuning in, and this is amazing because we are connected with you virtually, but we're all in the same space. So thank you so much again, DGC and GNEC, for working together and bringing the UN family together here. It's great. So our next speaker is a colleague, a respected colleague and longtime friend, Connie Sobin-Sensa, who serves currently as a director in the GNEC, that is the Global NGO Executive Committee. And she's also the civil society representative for the League of Women Voters of the US and president of the Northeast chapter of the Transcultural Nursing Society. And her academic hat is she's assistant professor at the Rutgers University School of Nursing. So Connie, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minnie. Can you all hear and see me okay? Yes, okay. So the world has learned a lot about courage, strength, and innovative solutions during this pandemic. But most of all, we've become resilient as we face the challenges imposed by COVID-19. As a society, we've been forced to find ways to communicate effectively without face-to-face meeting space and to accomplish goals together in partnership with like-minded people from distances far greater in miles or kilometers than we could have if we had to physically travel for those meetings. If people were resistant to digital technology as a primary means of communication, many of us have now learned to be proficient. The NGO community and the UN staff need to work on ways we can enhance our communication for productive outcomes, and this includes more time for dialogue in our meetings. Virtual platforms such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams, among others, have allowed us to continue to communicate effectively and efficiently despite travel restrictions and social distancing. So as we contemplate travel and travel restrictions, it's also a time to think about the carbon footprint that has been significantly reduced worldwide due to limitations imposed by the pandemic. Perhaps it is time to look at how these challenges are leading us to solutions. A Bloomberg survey of 45 large businesses in the US, Europe, and Asia shows 84% plan to spend less time on post-pandemic travel due to ease and efficiency of virtual software, cost savings, and lower carbon emissions. So when it comes to sustainable development goals, China's carbon emissions in the first quarter of 2020 decreased by 25%, and 2020 saw the largest drop in carbon emissions since World War II, a step in the right direction. It is important to recognize the impact of COVID-19 intergenerationally and the role of technology in staying connected. This applies to older adults as well as to Generation Z, the teens and young adults who completed their secondary school education with social isolation and virtual learning during the pandemic. Older adults faced high rates of social isolation compared to other adult age groups because of the strict physical distancing rules that were initially applied to them due to their increased vulnerability to coronavirus. And we know that social isolation has a negative impact on mental health as a result of loneliness. This includes an increased risk of depression and suicidal ideation. Resources such as online communication tools, promote social engagement among older adults who may have physical limitations to travel to in-person meetings, and for younger adults as well to satisfy their thirst for social engagement. Perhaps the younger generation can teach the older generation more digital literacy skills to enhance communication. There's also great potential for developing reciprocal mentoring relationships and partnerships that enhance dialogue and exchange of ideas between generations. So as a way to engage civil society with no one left behind, I encourage you to use these lessons learned as we look ahead. I encourage you to invite the UN staff to join your virtual meetings to make your voices heard and facilitate dialogue. Virtual meetings remove the limitations of finances, travel, and physical disabilities and allow for more voices and greater attendance to fully participate in meetings and the exchange of ideas. One of the best ways to enhance communication is through active membership on various committees where you will meet like-minded people for collaboration and networking. I have found that the conversations that develop within focused virtual breakout rooms enhance the intimacy to take a deeper dive into an issue. Focused breakout rooms and space for reporting key takeaways to the main meeting should be an essential part of every virtual meeting to strengthen engagement. While some may see virtual meetings as a limitation, I see it as a much greater opportunity for engagement from all parts of the world. Thank you. Minnie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Connie, for kicking off the remarks on behalf of the NGO community. And just to add on to what you said, because your remarks were such a nice compliment to what Andy said, we are really talking about reducing the carbon footprints. And that's something I think we had discussed that earlier too, one-on-one and, with our other colleagues. So this is really important. And also, I think one of the things we have to thank COVID for, I shouldn't be saying that as a healthcare professional, but is increased connectivity. So that I think is something we're looking at the optimistic side, if there is one, that it's increased connectivity. And I think it's also increased empathy and mindfulness. So this is something which we really need to be focusing on, the connectivity. And as Rob Skinner, told us so well about the hybrid, the importance of the hybrid, scenario continuing, it's really good. So thank you so much again, Connie. And that being said, now, ladies and gentlemen, this is intergenerational partnership, and it's so exciting because I'm going to ask Nadine Clopton, my colleague, who is the second vice president of the Global NGO Executive Committee. She's a youth representative for Caring and Living as Neighbors Clan. I love that acronym because we are all a clan here listening to this webinar. And founder and president of Conscious Consulting. So Nadine, I'm really looking forward to hearing your remarks because from Connie, now we're intergenerational, we are coming to the youth. You people, you and Renor, who will be speaking later, are our torch bearers. So it's really awesome. So take it away, Connie. Take it away, Nadine. After Connie, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, Minnie, and for your optimism and your energy. It's always so enlivening. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you are. I myself am calling in from Vermont on the traditional lands of the Cree and Abenaki people. And first, I must convey my depth of gratitude to our colleagues over at DGC for creating this space for collaboration and connection, and for the opportunity to join you here today. And of course, to the NGO community, thank you for your continued work towards creating a brighter future. Connection, especially in these days, is paramount to someday achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Connection between the UN and civil society, connection between NGOs and member states, and most critically, connection between NGOs and one another. Just look at COP26. While the outcome was frankly disappointing, the example set forth by civil society of what it means to come together as a community of global citizens, grounded in a deep care for one another, was powerful. It's solidarity that will continue to serve as our impetus for sustainability. finding opportunities to connect and uplift one another as we rise, seeing frameworks such as the UN SDGs not as a set of 17 distinct categories, but rather as a deeply interconnected, intersectional set of challenges and solutions that require novel forms of collaboration. And as a youth climate activist and an NGO youth representative to the UN myself, I'm most inspired by the stories I hear from NGO leaders and advocates for a sustainable future in communities around the globe, particularly referencing the climate crisis, which requires an unprecedented urgency and a multi-sectoral transformation to a care-based model of social and ecological responsibility. It's the stories of civil society that guide the way forward. A key example, Indigenous communities carry the wisdom of how to live in right relationship and reciprocity with the earth, with ourselves and with one another, yet they're largely unrepresented in multilateral decision-making spaces. At COP26, there was an absence of meaningful inclusion of Indigenous peoples in the room where it happens, to quote Hamilton. More and more of the world has been learning their stories, yet they're still overwhelmingly absent from key negotiation and drafting processes. To be critical of a system, nation, or institution is actually an act of love to push it to embody the best version of itself. And last year, the UN catalyzed a global conversation initiative called UN 75, crowdsourcing opinions to reimagine the United Nations. And overwhelmingly, respondents envisioned a world in which civil society is an equal partner in decision-making, where neighborhoods are just as important as nation states, where diverse actors and cultures that are not represented by a nation state still have a seat at the table. Because what is a nation state if not its people? And if civil society is not gathered around the decision-making table, then who is? And if care is not our impetus, then what is? And who have we become? So the meaningful inclusion of civil society is imperative to a healthy, accountable multilateral system. In order for the UN to stand like the chair at the UN in Geneva, it must live up to its promises to civil society. This is where there's room for extensive partnership between the UN and civil society, who are most closely aligned in values and visions for change. We need your help. The UN is an incredible vehicle for storytelling. I mean, listen to what Andy was just saying. It's amazing all the projects that are happening within DGC alone. And just look at how incredibly the dinosaur climate short has been received. Novel storytelling is possible through enhanced partnerships between civil society, the UN, and across generations. Thinking of the successful YouTube series, Yes Theory, it's heartfelt human connection that has always driven us as a collective, asking questions and listening more than we speak. In the global north right now, we're experiencing winter, a pulling inward to tend to our roots and our inner gardens. It's a great time of year for reflective questioning, and it's questions that unlock visions of what's emerging. They support us in doing an alignment check on our values and in really hearing one another. So, in the spirit of reflective questioning, how can we, as GNEC, better amplify voices from across civil society? How are we, civil society, and the UN in relation to one another? How are we showing up as a partner or a teammate to one another? What's the world that we intend to build, and how can we do it better together? What privileges do I have? How can I use them to create a platform for others? And what is your story? And how can we serve you in sharing it with the world? That is our intention at GNEC. We're offering to host a bunch of different services to support our NGO community and a platform for your stories to be heard. So I'm happy to announce that coming in the spring, we'll be launching a podcast to do just that. So be sure to tune into the NGO Reporter for upcoming details on how to get involved. And so through this podcast, we hope to share all sorts of stories, because social, environmental, and systems change are infinitely more possible when we have accountability stemming from care between generations and an embodied sense of responsibility for our earth and one another. An intergenerational partnership is key. There's a really sacred bond that exists between older and younger generations. And particularly in the context of NGOs, youth representatives are a fantastic source of energy, momentum, and creative insight. When paired with NGO representatives with decades of experience or mentors within the UN system, there's endless possibility for change motivated by intergenerational partnership. And in my journey, it's been by mentors from older generations who've had the most profound impact. I think of Bill Hunter from Lehigh University, who carved out space for hundreds of NGO youth reps at the UN and got me started on my journey. Of Dr. Holly Shaw, whose encouragement through GNEC led to my candidacy as a director. Of Bill Myers, whose extensive humanitarian journey has become a platform through which he uplifts those around him, myself included. So when we remember the power of community, care, and intergenerational partnership, the web of connection weaves endless possibilities for how we are to use our collective power for good. Thank you for having me here today. It's been an absolute delight, and I am going to pass it back to Minnie.
Thank you so much, Nadine, for your very passionate remarks, and also for acknowledging all the people who really, made this possible for you to be here today. I would just like to add that we are not in competition with the youth. The youth are not in competition with the older generation, because age is what you feel, what you do, and together, I'm locking my hands, we are stronger. So that's why at GNEC and working with the DGC, and Andy, you talked about storytelling. Nadine, you amplified it by talking about our podcast. But this is what I'm saying. It's just not storytelling, dear friends and colleagues. It is also a call to action and sharing best practices. So saying that, I'm really looking forward to hearing from Rinar Jani. Rinar, it's so nice to have you on the panel. And you are the sole male on the panel. We believe in gender equity. You may be last on the panel, but in no way least. I just want to get that message across. And Rinar is a member of the DGC Civil Society Youth Representative Sterling Committee, and also represents his NGO Pathways to Peace, which is so important, especially during these turbulent times at the UN. And Rinar, before I hand it over to you, I just want to take 2 seconds to give a shout out to, again, Hava and her team for being such incredible mentors to all the civil society youth representatives. I know a lot of them, and they have been really amazing. You have really given them a great web, a great platform to get their message across and blend in seamlessly with the work of the GNEC and also the DGC. So thank you again. Over to you, Rinar. We are waiting to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Padmini, and it is wonderful to really be here with all of you this morning. Hello, everyone. I just want to start off by saying that it is an honor to be here among fellow DGC colleagues, the NGO Executive Committee, and youth panelists here. As we are bringing 2021 to a close and setting the stage for what we would like 2022 to bring, it is important to consider that partnerships that we are forming are important to keep in mind with youth. Partnership with civil society is a cornerstone that is an essential component for the United Nations to thrive upon and further achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. UN Sustainable Development Goal 17 highlights the need to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. In order for partnerships to be cultivated, it is important for the UN to provide spaces and accessibility for civil society organizations to participate in various processes. With the recent allowance of NGOs into the UN HQ and in-person processes, this allows for a greater balance to occur. In the midst of these processes, it is important to remember that the important participation of youth must be seen as essential stakeholders. This is vital in furthering the impact of the UN and intergenerational leadership. More sustainable partnerships within and with the UN can occur when youth are seen valued, and included to help guide conversation and implementation forward. I truly believe that this must occur across several levels of the UN structure. The pandemic has shown us their important role in society and the impact it has had on them. According to UNICEF, in 2020, there were over 1.5 billion school children who were affected by school closures at the peak of nationwide lockdowns. This is just one major way in which youth have been affected. It is vital to hear from those who have experienced this when it comes to decision-making processes. If national and international policy is being made that has an impact on youth, then youth must also be part of those discussions and processes as well. Within the next 5 years, I really do hope to see more youth appointed to roles of responsibility so that we can bridge the intergenerational divide among generations within the UN and beyond. However, I will say that the balance beam of responsibility weighs equally for the UN and civil society, because NGOs must also bring young professionals and youth to the discussion table and provide opportunities for participation as well. This is something that Pathways to Peace has implemented for decades, which has allowed for its peace-building work to flourish. Our strong team of PTP representatives with consultative status with ECOSOC and DGC have participated in several UN programs, such as the Commission on the Status of Women, the Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference, and of course, our annual International Day of Peace, which we helped since its inception in 1981. In addition to my work at Pathways to Peace and the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, 2017 Nobel Peace Prize winner, I have noticed some ways in which the UN has become more inclusive of youth involvement and participation. In his 2018 Agenda for Disarmament, UN Secretary General Guterres highlighted youth as a force for change in the world, and when it comes to nuclear disarmament. As a result, he committed the UN Office of Disarmament Affairs to provide a platform for more youth engagement and active participation. Furthermore, the Youth for Disarmament Initiative was created to provide opportunities to join conferences, share new ideas and updates on their advocacy work, and learn from credible experts in the field. This is a clear example of how youth can further help our collective work together, and I truly do look forward to seeing more opportunities for youth inclusion and participation within the NGO and UN community. It has also been wonderful to co-lead the efforts to organize and to soon launch a youth interview series that is a new initiative of the UN DGC Youth Representative Steering Committee. The goal of this series is to give youth an opportunity to share more about their impactful work and to share resources on how other youth can get involved in making an impactful difference throughout the world. I want to also thank Hawa, Andy, everyone within the Department of Global Communications for guiding the committee efforts, and of course, my co-lead, Cairo Eubanks. I'm really looking forward to actually launching the series, which features the first episode featuring former African Youth Envoy, Aya Shebi. Thank you to the Department of Global Communications, the NGO Executive Committee, and all of the organizers of today's civil society briefing, and for really giving youth a platform through our panel together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rinar, for your rocking remarks, RRR, and I'm sure you will be working along with your other colleagues whom we are so proud of, all our youth. because you really lighten up and you are the torch bearers to make the torch brighter as you hand it over. And I would just like to say, as we are going on to the question and answer session right now, which starts, may I request that you all post your questions in the chat, and please keep your questions respectful and related to the topics discussed. Make sure you include your name and affiliation, and if the questions are general, they are not directed at any of our four panelists, here, then I will post it to the panelist or address it to the person who is, I think, most appropriate in answering this question. And sometimes there may be more than one person answering the question. So again, thank you so much. We have Andy back, Connie, Nadine, and Renor. And again, I would appreciate all of you for your time on behalf of the GNEC and the NGO community and me personally, because this has been an amazing experience. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with the questions. And again, for the sake of our attendees, I would like to say that we will try to get to as many questions as possible, but we also have a time factor, and we have another segment of the program which you will enjoy. As Catherine so eloquently put it, we have 3 parts in this program. So to start the questions, we first have a question from Ms. Zareen Hainsworth, who would like to know, and I think, Connie, it's specifically directed to you. She would like to hear more about how to get more involved with the different committees you mentioned. Over to you, Connie. Thank you. Connie, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, I put the websites in the chat. There are different committees that are affiliated with the United Nations, and the website that you should look at is https://sustainabledevelopment.un.org/major-groups/NGOs. And there's an NGO major group that helps to bring information, synthesize what's going on and how you can best participate. And there's also specific groups there for women and science and education. So if you have particular interest in any of those groups, it helps to bring like-minded NGOs together and to help you develop ideas and interventions, and also make statements at major events like the high-level political forum. So I suggest that you go to that website and see where your organization fits in best. And if you don't have a particular place and you're looking for your space, I would go to the NGO major groups, and it's a more generalist type group that will help you make those decisions.
Thank you so much, Connie. Any other insights from Nadine or Renor before we move on to the next question? Very briefly, please. Anything you want to add? Andy, anything from you?
I would just say that for any youth representatives, NGO youth representatives that have consultative status through the UN, if you are interested in joining the Youth Representative Steering Committee at DGC, please contact Hawa in the chat. I'm sure she will have a lot of information that she wants to share with you and how to apply.
Thank you so much, Renor. And moving on to our next question. This is from Daniel Chivu. He wants to know how GNEC can facilitate the inclusion of CSOs in the UN processes, such as the CSW official negotiations, as the space for CSO is constantly shrinking in this particular space. I think I would like to have Andy, if you could please give us some of your insights onto this question. Would you like me to repeat that again? Okay. This question is from Daniel Chivu, who said, how can GNEC facilitate the inclusion of CSO in the UN process, such as the CSW official negotiations, as the space for the CSOs is constantly shrinking in this particular space? So after Andy, I'll ask Connie, Nadine to jump in, and Renor. Over to you, Andy. Thank you. This is an important question, which I think many people have. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Minnie. Yeah, and I think because it's also pointed toward GNEC, I would love them to also be able to answer and to follow up, obviously, because that's going to be, they're going to have particular insights into that. But I think it's really the notion also we talked about, and sorry, I'm so sorry, my dog is in the background being very vocal here. But I think it is that notion of thinking about particular ways to engage. So forgive me, I'm so sorry. Did somebody else want to take this just to start? I just want to.
Thank you, Andy. Connie?
I think I'll divert to Nadine to speak first.
Okay, Nadine?
So I think in regard to the specific question, they're asking about participation in the formal processes of the CSW. I don't think that engagement in that is under our particular purview, but I think that there's us as GNEC, we're more than happy to hear questions like that and be able to support you in trying to figure out what the answer may be. So even if we don't have it off the top of our heads, we want to work collaboratively as a community to ensure that we can find that out, because we, like all the NGOs present, are active members of civil society. So I think finding out those access points are key for us as well as the majority of the NGO community.
Minnie, as this has been a problem answering, can I just jump in a second? I did answer in the chat briefly to Daniela that if indeed she is associated with ECOSOC, the appropriate answer here is for her to contact our sister organization, Congo. The Congress of NGOs addresses this issue regularly, I'm sure, and therefore I believe that the answer lay there. If she's not able to contact Congo, I did also put my email in the chat and recommend that people write to my email and we will assist from there. And I think generally to answer this question about GNEC, I think you can see as producers, we are trying to really create platforms upon which our constituents may better work. So if there are technical and development issues, if there are presentational issues that you face, I believe GNEC is really the place to come. And when it becomes an issue of consultative status, that's where Congo shines, and Congo works closely with ECOSOC in that regard. And I wish you the best of luck, Daniela. Thank you. And thank you, Minnie. Sorry to jump in.
Thank you, Patrick. Over to back to you, Andy. And the reason I requested Andy to first give us her valuable insights is because this kind of relates to the UN aspect too, as Nadine and Patrick mentioned. So it would have been good to have everybody's input. So back to you, Andy.
Yeah, I'll just be really quick because I think Patrick said it very well. I would just also encourage the what we call NGLS, the Non-Governmental Liaison Service, which is part of the civil society unit within DGC, also helps to facilitate and foster participation at high-level events across the UN. So that might be also a place to think about and a place to at least start. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I have another question here to say, has GNEC ever considered doing an event with the Youth Representative Steering Committee? And I think the answer, I speak for all of us here, yes. And thank you so much for that question, because we will do our best to, have one specifically only for youth. Thank you so much. And our next question, as we are moving around, is from Joseph Demier. Can you describe some of the practical steps for civil society to engage more with the various UN agencies and the UN missions? And he is from the Psychological Study of Social Issues. That's his NGO. Connie, I would like to start with you on this. Any insights?
I'm sorry, Minnie, I had a little lapse in here in the question. One more
Okay, well, I'm going to repeat it again. This is from Joseph Demir, who says, can you describe some of the practical steps for civil society to engage more with the various UN agencies and UN missions?
I would say that the best way to do that is to be present at meetings and to join committees. And that helps you to form networks and to learn people by name and face, and then to strengthen those connections.
Thank you. I think that is a very, important step they can look at. And please, follow us from our reporter. Andy, would you like to say something? Or the next question is specifically for you. So please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Just really quickly, Connie, couldn't agree more. I think that's great advice. Just also to let everyone know, we do have through DGC, where we convene an interagency working group of civil society focal points across the UN system. So if there's issues that you want brought up, or there's specific questions as well, and please feel free to email us, the civil society unit, and these are issues that we can help to raise also within our interagency working groups, because we're able to we bring up issues both internally, but also kind of what's on the mind of civil society. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. The next question is specifically directed to you. It's from Justice Zwaita. I hope I got your last name right. How can we get involved in the action group you mentioned in your remarks? And Justice is with the African Coalition on Green Growth.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm maybe not entirely sure which action group specifically, but I know I mentioned the Civil Society Action Stories, so I'm wondering if that may be what you mean. If so, and if not, please feel free to always email me, after, and I'm incredibly happy to answer the question if that is not what you mean. But these are action stories, so we're going to be likely picking new themes moving forward and putting out a call to civil society organizations to be able to submit stories. So what we would do is just encourage you to kind of keep a glance at our social media as well as our website, because we do have the calls going out as well as we put them out on emails for further action stories. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean. If not, please don't hesitate to reach out and I'll make sure to answer that question.
Thank you so much, Andy. Next question. I'm trying to get in as many as possible.
Oh, just really quickly, sorry, Minnie. And then if you did, when I talk about action just in general as it relates to campaigns, again, we will be also sending information about different campaigns that you can be part of that lead, that are action oriented and have calls to action. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Andy. And my apologies. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know that you were adding something else. Again, my apologies. So the next question is from Pascual Antonio Riccio, who is with the Alpha Cultural Association. It's in two parts. So I'm going to direct the first question to Renor and later on to Nadine. And the second question is about health. So Connie and I will take a stab at it. So it says that he thanks everybody for this webinar, and we are ready to get involved to reach important goals in the network. So what are the steps to get involved in youth participation? Renor, it's over to you, and then over to you, Nadine.
Thank you so much, and I think it's a good question. I would first say that it's important to begin showing up, as Connie mentioned, to meetings, civil society briefings, understanding which organizations are participating in youth processes, what initiatives the UN is also having regarding youth. I think, of course, showing up for anything is like the first step. And also being clear on which type of youth processes you want to be involved in, because you may show up for something that's related to climate, but you may instead want to work on maybe work with the Youth for Disarmament initiative that the UN Office of Disarmament Affairs is working on, or maybe you want to learn more about what the Youth Representative Steering Committee is doing. So it's a matter of intention and understanding where you want to make an impact and letting that guide your decisions so that you can be in the place in which you feel you would make the best impact in.
Thank you, Renor. Nadine, you have 40 seconds to answer this question.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Renor. I think that was a really comprehensive response to that. I just say really emphasizing the importance of utilizing having NGO youth representatives. It's such a powerful way for NGOs, especially underfunded, under-resourced NGOs, to have someone who's engaging constantly with the UN world. I know, youth representatives like Renor and myself, it's amazing who you're able to meet and the networks you form over time, and really being able to share the NGO's story. So if you don't already have youth representatives, I highly encourage it. You can have them be accredited either with UNDGC or in consultative status with ECOSOC, and particularly as we're looking towards things opening back up in the future. Really being on the ground and getting to interact is huge, both for the NGO and for the young people. So really, that's a huge tangible way to get engaged in youth participation. And of course, all of the special interest area groups, figure out which SDGs you're particularly passionate about. There's working groups for all of them. There's all different back channels and communications that you can get involved in. So starting there, even doing things on LinkedIn, finding out who's working on what and send them a cold message. And those working in the NGO community are often so kind and open that they'll respond anyway, and be happy to connect. So thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Nadine and Renor. And now, Connie, the same question from Pascal, and he's with the Alpha Cultural Association and Campus Salute. He wanted to know, how can their organization or other organizations get involved in health goals? Again, a full disclosure, this was a two-part question. It's not that he was being given another question which was being answered. So I just want to get that out there. So Connie, how do you think, very briefly in 40 seconds, what are your recommendations how anybody can get involved with the health goals?
I think that you have to look at the broad perspective. When I first became involved on behalf of nursing, I thought everything that had to do with SDG 3, health and well-being, was where I needed to be. But then you find that climate has an impact on human health, and there are many other things. So find your voice within each community to see that interconnection between the SDGs and relate it through your lens back to health. That's what I would say is one way to get involved and raise your questions in meetings regardless of the main topic. And Minnie, I'm going to turn it back to you to continue in the answer.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very briefly, just to add to what Connie said, one of the things is, SDG 3 is multidimensional. It's like a three-dimensional puzzle. So you can always bring the health aspect, because if you don't have health, you don't have anything else. So it's so closely linked to women's empowerment, climate change, and partnerships. So make sure that you do keep abreast, and please look at the DGC weekly newsletter they sent out, which is amazing. A big shout out to our UN colleagues, because you get so much of information. And also our own NGO reporter, which comes out, we always highlight this. Make sure you join our listserv so that you can have more insights and more information. And just as we're wrapping up, there was a question from Utu Dichina Nweke, who asked about if CSOs will physically attend CSW 2022. I just would like to say that please keep a lookout on the UN Women website, because they are giving the updates. Because at this point, we do not know, at least not in this particular forum we are talking about, as far as NGO reps are concerned, we do not have that. So this is what I would suggest. But Andy, do you have anything else to add on to that, or do I move on with regard to the CSO participation in person in the upcoming CSW in March 2020?
No, thank you, Minnie. I think you answered it well, which is it's an evolving situation. You'll be getting, as I mentioned in my remarks, some more information on renewing ground passes, and civil society has begun to come back. But in terms of the specifics, and again, it is such an evolving situation, it makes the most sense to keep looking at the CSW, the UN Women website, because they'll be absolutely updating it with the latest information.
Thank you so much. And moving on, I think we are almost wrapping up. Last two questions. One is from Jay Makhajani from Global Policy Inside GPI. And the question is, what are the tools at our disposal which should be considered to bring deliveries that are being set to the goals at the SDG climate change? So what are the tools at the disposal which can be used to bring the goals of the SDG climate change? Anybody wants to jump in very quickly? Go ahead, Nadine, over to you.
I think with climate, at least in my opinion, fundamentally, it's more of an underlying philosophical issue. So, we can push for policy change all we want, but until people truly see themselves as part of an ecosystem, as part of a community, we're going to really struggle in having meaningful change that's long lasting. So the underlying ethic of overconsumption, of extraction from people, from Mother Nature herself, I think that that's a fundamental challenge. So, to go back to Andy's earlier point with storytelling, that's a huge element of how we can really convey on the ground information, what's happening to our climate. I had gone through a webinar with some young people, and I prompted them to share their own ecosystem experiences. So what places on this earth are meaningful to them? How do they relate to them? What do they feel about witnessing it changing over time? So I think really just giving priority to the feeling element and connecting through feeling with, whether it's with your legislators, whether it's with fellow NGO colleagues, or with the private sector who has an enormous stake in the climate crisis as well. So
thank you so much. Andy, you wanted to add something to that?
I love that answer, Nadine. And just to couple that with kind of the feeling and then the tactical, there is a number of toolkits and the rest on certain SDG websites, and campaigns that relate to that. And maybe some of my colleagues can very kindly add some of those in the chat or send it out after. But there's some real specific, ways to get involved, ways you can make a difference. There's also the ACNAR website, which has, individual actions people can take around climate and sustainability and the rest. So we'll be sure to add that. But love what you said, Nadine, about the feeling component as well.
Yeah, and also the other thing is, use social media. I mean, like if you look on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, join the groups. There are so many best practices which are being shared, just in addition to what Andy and Nadine highlighted. And as I said again, I'll go back to it's storytelling is also best practices, experience sharing about challenges, and how can we address this as the global community? Because we have COVID, yes, but climate change is there. So we have a quadruple whammy with the COVID, climate change. So this is why we need to look at it all in the same, not singly, yes, to a certain extent singly, but also together. That's why I call it a 3D puzzle. So thank you so much. And, thank you for your time, your expertise, your passion, your compassion in all the work that you do, all of you and all our NGO colleagues. And before we move on to the third section, we have another audio-visual treat for you. We have some videos which were sent by our civil society organizations on reflecting and amplifying the United Nations message. So the first video is the smile of the child from Greece, and we will hear from Kostas Giankopoulos, the president. So over to you for the video sharing. And thank you again, panelists. Please join me in giving them a big round of applause. Thank you.
Our organization, The Smile of the Child, was founded by a 10-year-old boy in 1995 when Andreas wrote in his diary his wish to establish an organization to support all the children, despite the color, the ethnicity, etc. This is what we follow as an organization. No child, no family is left alone within Greece, either legally or illegally. Children that are vulnerable, children that they need our support, with a holistic approach as we have as the Smile of the Child, we have to be by the side every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. We, at the Smile of the Child, think and make sure that all actions are given to the vulnerable children and families. We're very proud to be associated with the UNDGC and enjoy consultative status of ECOSOC. Our actions, of course, support in practice many of the SDGs, as reflected in the sustainability report that has been supported to us by Ernst & Young.
My name is Melina.
My name is Yvonne. My name is Anna. My name is Melita.
We are the student volunteers of the Children's Rights Team
Of the Smile of the Child. From children to children. From our best friend to a person that we've never met. From thoughts to actions.
Our campaign is our voice.
Our team spirit is our driving force. To raise awareness. To talk about what everybody's afraid to talk about.
To give voice to the concerns of children in Greece.
Thank you all for your patience. I think we're having a few technical issues and this is being worked on. Thank you so much. So now while that is being done, I would like to call upon our Ms. Bangbose Martins, who is going to be speaking to us. And the next video we're going to be seeing a strategy for mentoring, initiative and leadership. This is from Nigeria on upcoming youth programs for 2022. So thank you so much. Can that video be shared now, please? Thank you.
Strategy for Mentoring, Initiative and Leadership Empowerment with the acronym SMILE is a youth leadership development and mentoring non-governmental organization established in Lagos, Nigeria, and in the United States of America. As we plan for the year 2022, our goal is to address the growing disparity gaps experienced by indigent youth due to their socioeconomic status. Firstly, we shall be bridging the growing digital divide by incorporating digital skills education into our Young Leaders Mentoring Program and sourcing for, as well as donating more digital devices to indigent students. We will also continue to provide scholarships and educational support for promising indigent students who are now more at risk of dropping out of school due to the worsening financial hardship and their impoverished backgrounds. Thirdly, we will continue to support the education of girls by providing STEM educational materials and resources so girls are not marginalized because of their gender in their science-related careers. We will also be scaling up our youth business development programs to tackle youth unemployment and poverty and to promote entrepreneurship as viable options for youth to achieve financial independence. We will also continue to support youth with disabilities by ensuring that they participate and are included in our programs. We are leaving no stone unturned in equipping our youth from less privileged backgrounds with requisite skills and knowledge through our programs in 2022, as we continue to propel ourselves in the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 1, 4, 8, and 17.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bamgose Martins, for your intervention. And now I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Sandra Timmerman, Director, Global NGO Executive Committee and the NGO representative for International Federation on Aging. Over to you, Sandra, and thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. What a wonderful program today. I want to thank our speakers, but mostly I want to say one of the themes that came out loud and strong is a strengthened opportunity for the UN Department of Global Communications and all of us who are part of the NGO civil society community to work together to really enhance our own efforts in our NGOs, but also to come together with common bonds and find ways that we can collaborate and be in partnership. And of course, for me, as a gerontologist and a representative for the UN, for the International Federation on Aging, I want to encourage the intergenerational aspect that Connie and that Nadine spoke so passionately about. Older people are certainly a part of our society, and they care about the future. They care about climate change. So we're ready to work together with youth to make sure that no one, regardless of age, is left behind. I think other themes that came out is that the NGO community is really the community that can put us into challenges to say to the UN, we're here, we have boots on the ground, we can really make a difference. And a goal of GNEC this year is to get more collaboration with our own NGO community to see how we can work together, and then to see how we can really enhance our presence at the UN. I think many of us have been feeling that we want to do more at the UN. COVID has stopped us from being there physically, but as it's been said, we are virtual now too, so we can make great impact. And we want to hear from you. I know Patrick, under his leadership, will be setting up a whole range of opportunities to hear from our NGO community, those affiliated with the UN Department of Global Communications, and who hopefully will be, if they're not, to come together so we can talk and see how we might be able to help you. So it is my pleasure now to begin our closing remarks. We have representatives from both the GNEC and also from the Department of Global Communications. And our first speaker is Ola Subami Aina. Ola is a director of the Global NGO Executive Committee, the GNEC, and she is also executive director of the Light Up Foundation. So Ola, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And we've had a very wonderful session so far. Many thanks to all the civil society organizations here for finding the time to attend this informative program. Candidly, I find the words of Israel Moore Ayivo, an inspirational writer and life skills entrepreneur, very intriguing and illuminating. Let me share this quickly with you. We are no longer in the dispensation of age and experience. We are in the era of knowledge and information. Information leads a true leader, and a true leader leads others. This thought-provoking saying precisely illustrates my perspective on the importance of information to us as a race on the move. and the impact of disseminating correct, proper, and helpful information across the various platforms that we deploy professionally and socially on a daily basis. We are all gathered here today as leaders of thought, and in this notable capacity, we need to be well informed in order not to deform the destinies of everyone and anyone within our spheres of influence by the information we share with them across various platforms. On this note, I wish to sincerely appreciate my colleagues and the UNDGC staff for the time and effort you have sacrificed to ensure the success of this beautiful event. Furthermore, I am so deeply grateful for the invaluable information shared with us in the course of this program. I believe that we are all further reformed and better informed for the great task ahead of us in the year 2022. I am the Executive Director for Light Up Foundation, an international organization of great repute that works with young people and the disadvantaged to inspire and empower them. Now, for the purpose of this gathering, I'm a member of the Global NGO Executive Committee Board, GNEC, and I represent the Subcommittee for Communications. I hereby wish to use this privilege I have to tell you so much about the care we have for you and your organizations at GNEC. We are always happy to help NGOs share their news and celebrate outstanding contributions via our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just to mention a few. We also promise to keep you in the loop as we roll out the GNEC podcast in the coming year. On this note, we wish to encourage you to ensure that your NGO is included on our homepage, in our innovation academic programs, and in other beneficial activities of the GNEC. We therefore implore you all to keep in touch with us, and please watch out for our December holiday chat, which will be coming up this Saturday, the 18th of December, 2021. Please stand by as we bring you details of more briefing in the new year. And until then, we wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a peaceful New Year. Goodbye from the GNEC and the UNDGC.
Thank you, Ola. I second everything you said. Appreciate those remarks. And now I'd like to turn it over to Felipe Cuempo, who is Communications Officer in the Civil Society Unit of the UN Department of Global Communications. Felipe, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Sandra, and definitely thank you, Elizabeth, for your wonderful words. And thank you, everyone, for participating. And we're delighted at the Department of Global Communications that you have joined us today for this end of season. And we are extremely excited for what is to come. I'm going to make my remarks super brief because we have heard amazing things, and there's very little we can add, or I can add to this. But we want to be with you next year as we move into 2022 and have a vision for what is to come. And what is to come is an amazing opportunity to re-engage, to find that space that some of you have mentioned that has been shrinking. I maybe am an optimist by nature, but I believe that the civil society space at the UN has become bigger and stronger throughout the years. In 76 years of history, I don't think there has been the volume of civil society participation within the UN system that we can see today, be it through the Economic and Social Council, consultative status for many CSOs, the participation at high-level events by the President of the General Assembly or the Secretary General, through our colleagues in NGLS, be it through briefings. I mean, there's no other office within the UN system that provides, and that's the pride of DGC, that provides a space like DGC for civil society, because we really value this partnership. Let me tell you a secret. Some of you may have heard me saying this before, but we need each other. That's for sure. We need the UN needs civil society, and civil society needs the UN. But my secret is the UN needs you much more than you need the UN. There's only 45,000 of us working for the organization, for the Secretariat, and there's almost 8 billion people on this planet. And we believe that all the responsibility lays on the UN efforts and parameters. We are being naive We rely heavily on your expertise. We need you. The world needs you. And in a pandemic like this one, we have seen that only working together we can really make a difference. As I said in the video, I believe that this pandemic has shown us that we can be even more transparent, more democratic, more inclusive, that we can really work together towards good, and we can build amazing things. We cannot let COVID-19 replace our work and our focus. COVID-19 should be the lens through which we look at the world. We have learned that we must continue, that women empowerment has to happen, that women are the main group that has been impacted by COVID-19 in many of the different areas, which means that we need to redouble our efforts. We need to really focus on how we can streamline our work and how can we really ensure that what we do makes a difference, that we really, like Agenda 2030 says, leave no one behind. So let's take advantage of this opportunity. Let's make sure that this is a time where we learn, where we grow together, and we find new ways of communicating. Technology is allowing for us to communicate virtually from all over the world in an instant. Yes, there are glitches and connection is not perfect, and not everyone has access to technology. So our next step, yeah, we have now virtual participation, hybrid participation. Okay, let's ensure that those regions of the world that do not have access to technology, the bandwidth, or that do not have the capacity to really connect, that they do. Let's try to partner with the private sector and see if they can support our efforts in bringing technology and bringing internet access to all corners of this earth. Because at the end of the day, in the Department of Global Communications, we believe that information is power. Information is the new form of currency, and people must have that information. People deserve, have the right. It's a human right to have access to information, to be informed, to be educated, to be able to participate actively. So for all those reasons, we need you more than ever, because we're coming out of this stronger. And yes, some people, we have left some people behind. Many people have died and many people have suffered and continue to suffer very, very harsh conditions. But we must always look towards how can we learn from this opportunity? How can we learn from this experience and do better? And one of those areas is, as I said, we must leave no one behind, and we must focus all of our work and efforts into becoming stronger. So we want to also know, how can we work better together? How can we work together? My colleagues are going to post on the chat a link to a survey. We hope that you can fill it out, and you can tell us, hey, how can we strengthen this amazing relationship? I've been in this office for 13 years, and I'm still enamored. I'm in love with civil society. I think that there's no better partner in crime, for good crime, which is goodness and humanity, than you are. And for that, you must know that in this office, the civil society unit, the section, the department at large, and the UN at large, but really, you have a very special place in our hearts in the society, in the civil society unit, because you do miracles, and you make this dream of the UN, this journey of 76 years, to remain alive and to continue serving the international community. And I cannot thank enough the Global NGO Executive Committee and your leadership for everything that they're doing, for everything that you are doing. So if there's one thing that I hope that we can get out of this whole situation of this virtual participation, lack of human-to-human interaction, is that first, there's hope for better times. We must work towards that. We don't give up. We'll leave no one behind. And we really, really hope to very, very soon see you in person and continue working to make this world a better place for everyone. Until then, again, and as we work together, we want to hear from you. We want your input. We want your support. We need you. Everyone needs you. Thank you so much. And I really wish you the very best for the NEC year 2022. And on behalf of the department and the office, please know that you have a strong ally in us to strengthen the space for civil society at the UN. Thank you.
Well, we love the passion of you, Felipe, and Ola, and all of our speakers. I think you in the audience can sense our enthusiasm. It just feels like new energy. And what a perfect time. We see, hopefully, COVID on the wane. That's my fingers crossed. And we also are starting a new year, 2022. So I want to thank you all. One thing, Felipe, you mentioned a survey. How is this taking place?
So we are sharing a link on the chat for the survey. You can just fill it out. It's super short. I promise it will not take much of your time. We just want, again, your voice to have a reflection in the work.
Great. So before you all depart, and we wish you happy holidays and a wonderful new year, please take that survey. Thank you again for participating with us, and thank you both to UNDGC and to our wonderful Global Communications NGO Executive Committee. And we'll see you again in the new year. And I guess actually we're going to have that holiday gathering, I forgot about that, on Saturday. So just stay tuned. We're going to be bothering you a lot, and I hope you'll bother us in the same way. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye now.
Thank you. Goodbye.